Technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show, and I am your host, Ben Crossman. Thank you so much for joining us as we jump into today, and what a great day we have for you, because it's our All Linux show. This is the show where, and we talk about a lot of different things about Linux, different programs, applications, distributions, blah, blah, blah. This time, though, we may get a little higher level with it, and, not saying that we can't go the other way, but now joining us, as always, is of course Marcel Gagne. He is free thinker at large. He does cooking with Linux, and of course, Linux Journal is a publication that he writes for and contributes to. And of course, he is our Linux correspondent here on Computer America. And yeah, he is fresh out on location at MMC/MCRCon, and we're going to learn exactly what those are. But yeah, he's fresh out there. He just gave a keynote earlier today, and yeah, we're going to be talking about what it is he was talking about earlier. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun here today. But before we get into that, we have a few things to announce, including only about 23 hours left in this week's contest for our Logitech giveaway. We are giving away an M720 Triathlon mouse. One mouse controls 3 different computers. It's really awesome. And as someone pointed out over there on Facebook, one AA, it's either one AA or one AAA. It escapes me right now, but one battery lasts you 3 years continuously of mouse usage. That's right. Very, very cool, and that's one of Logitech's big selling points, is that their mice last forever, and, this is a prize that if you win one, you're probably going to be using it for a long time to come. Or if you don't win one, then of course you can always go check one out in the store. Maybe go purchase one, because hey, it's a great mouse regardless. And again, we're giving one of those away tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow for that announcement. Also, be sure to check out the show notes and everything else that we do there at Computer America. So we have links to our guests, we have links to any articles that we do, we have links to just about anything and everything, just to make sure that if you're busy, if you are absent-minded, do not worry about it. Sit back and relax, and we have you covered with today's show notes. And then the last thing is, of course, watch Computer America, not just listen. So that's always fun. You get to experience Computer America in another way. Though, of course, optional, we try to make everything available through the audio-only experience. It just adds a little something. So, okay, now with all of that out of the way, why don't we just jump right into this? And once again, Marcel Gagne, cooking with Linux, free thinker at large, writer for Linux Journal, and of course, Computer America correspondent. Marcel, welcome on to Computer America once again. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. Can you hear me?
I can. A little echoey, but I can hear you.
All right. I needed to check on that just beforehand. Yes, as you pointed out, actually, I'm in my hotel room at the moment.
Right.
I'm in America today. So.
I am. Well, welcome to our country. I know it must be very strange, very different customs than what you are used to in Canada.
Well, I found Cracker Jacks. They actually had Cracker Jacks here at the hotel. I haven't had Cracker Jacks in like a million years. I'd forgotten these things still existed. And you know what? They still exist. The prizes aren't as good as they used to be. The prizes, it was like some stupid little thingy that you stuck on your phone and you played. It's just not the same anymore. But I had Cracker Jacks. That was fun.
Yeah, that's one thing I think America has completely nailed is junk food and snacks related things.
We're pretty good at it too. Just for the record. Anyway, no, I'm actually in Dearborn, Michigan today, and I was at the Merit conference, MemberCon, and this is a gathering of security types. The Merit Center at merit.edu is actually like what it sounds like. It's part of the Michigan Cyber Range at the University of Michigan, and they do all sorts of really cool things up there. But what they do is they are building the next generation of security professionals,
Hmm.
and of course,
Very
in
important.
our our connected world, that's a big deal. And they had all sorts of things here. They had, people doing talks on, and we're talking like some people were doing fairly high level talks on security. They had capture the flag events where they created an internal city, so to speak.
Hmm.
And the point was trying to break into this city's network and essentially capture a virtual flag. They have events, that they sponsor for kids, high school students to, again, same sort of idea, capture the flags type events, so that it's kind of an introduction. It's a fun gamified introduction to the world of computer security. So it was cool. It's neat being in an environment where, frankly, there are a lot of people that are, a hell of a lot smarter than I am.
Well, and that's the thing about when it comes to security, it's very very complicated when you get to the very high levels, but so many people are involved in it. And at the same time, as you point out, in a connected world, everyone needs to know some aspect of it. So very cool that they had that virtual capture the flag kind of deal, because being able to simplify it, put it into relatable terms, is as important, if not more important, than being able to speak at the highest level of security. Because if you can't act on what you hear, then it's just gibberish. It doesn't matter. So it sounds like a lot of this was putting it into relatable terms and why security is important.
Well, well, yes, it is. I mean, it's, and like I said, it's a member conference, so there are security people sharing ideas with each other. Um, Merit at the university, teaches cybersecurity, does certification courses, all sorts of things like that. This was, a little bit more casual in the sense that it was, people getting together, not just to share information, but socialize as well. So I mean, it's a conference, right? And it was a lot of fun. I had a great time here. I want to thank Pierre Templeton, if I can,
Sure.
from Merit, who who invited me here in the first place, and Joe Sawarski, who's the CEO of Merit. These people were like just fabulous. They have treated me beautifully, wonderfully. I couldn't have asked to be with a better crowd for the last couple of days. So,
Very well said.
I'm pleased to be here. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and of course. It wraps up for me anyway. It wraps up today. I'm going to be hitting the highway. I'm going to hit the highway like a bat out of hell. I'm sorry.
Right, right. Yeah, no, you.
Am I going to get in trouble for singing 3 seconds of a Meatloaf song there?
No, we have 15 seconds, and then we have to pay royalties, and
Oh, all right,
I
good.
cannot
So
afford meatloaf. I cannot afford meatloaf. So keep it to a minimum. But no, and we have here. If you're watching the video portion, we have the Merit University website up, and MMC-MCRC MCRCon, MCRCon. There we go. But yeah, you're right there. I am going to assume it's in order of importance and not the mere fact that it is in order of alphabetical. But Marcel Gagne is up there. And so why don't you just give us a quick explanation about, obviously you write about Linux. Linux is widely used behind the scenes in a lot of security and networking applications. But what kind of drew you to speak at this event? I mean,
well,
yeah.
well, the obvious answer is they asked me, but and I'm honored. It was great to be asked. But the the thing that I last night, I'm gonna back up just for a second and tell you about we had a speakers dinner last
Sure.
night. Got the speakers. We all sat down and chatted about this, that, and the other thing. And I was talking to one of the guys who's actually, I was talking to everybody, but I was talking to one guy at one point where we were discussing the different types of computer people who choose for whatever reason, especially in the open source world. And he was talking about the idea that there are the pushers out there. I thought this was an interesting term. It's like, you must use my software, or this piece of software that I'm using. This is what I use, therefore this is what you must use. And they try to push it on you, and so on. And as we were talking, he suggested that what I was a true believer. I wasn't just a pusher. I was a guy that actually believed in open source software. I believed in it from the perspective of it being good, and but also good for society, good for people, good technologically, and so forth. So I actually think, and I believe this. I mean, I think of open source and the open source philosophy as something that is a force for good. And oddly enough, that was the main title, a FOSS for good. FOSS is in free and open source software for good.
Mm.
I I genuinely believe that it's not just a question of, hey, you run Linux and it's something that you run on your desktop, blah blah blah. It goes so far beyond that. And every once in a while we're talking about Linux and we're talking about distribution, things like that on the show here, we tend to forget just how much of this is rooted in not just the software itself, not just the operating system that some of us run on our desktops, but open source is part technology, part ideology, part philosophy. It's more than just software. It's leveling the playing field. It's providing technology in a way that's free and open, so that people can use it, so that people can modify it, so that people can improve it, and then put those improvements back into the community. You remember? Well, I don't know if you remember, because ages past show. I was like a million years ago now in the last
Right.
show. I was telling you about the whole idea of how open source is life. It's life itself.
Yeah.
Idea that if you go back far enough, you're talking about DNA, which is, if you think about it, the source code of life. And every evolutionary change that's happened over the course of millions and millions of years has been the modification of this source code of life, of DNA, passing changes down from generation to generation. It's, open source is the most natural thing in the universe. It sounds like I'm getting almost religious here. I'm not. It's actually very true. But because of that, um, you know, because in so many ways it's similar, I think it's be able to step back and pause and understand that it's not just, it sounds like it's just technology, but it's not. It's a way to enrich people, to make their lives better.
Right.
And the best way to do that is by keeping all this stuff open.
Right, and it's not this idea of it's getting religious, it's getting sanctimonious, it's not this kind of thing. It's just building upon an idea that has obviously worked in in a roundabout way, like you're comparing, of course, evolution to Linux. Linux, I mean, I think that is a good word to put to the to the Linux community. It evolves. I mean, by giving everyone the tools that they need to take it in whichever direction. Admittedly, if you go through the years, if you go back 10, 15, 20 years into the Linux community, I feel like you're going to run into a lot of evolutionary dead ends. But Linux is still going on today, so I can see your comparison to evolution, in that not every iteration is going to be, my God, this is the next best thing, but it's going to be, well, you tried, and we're going to take 1% of what you did, and congratulations, you added 1% to what we do.
Well, that's true, but there are always evolutionary dead ends. There are evolutionary dead ends, if you'll pardon the expression, in everything. I mean, there are fast food joints that open up that are still with us 30 years later, 40 years later, or hey, A&W, I'm talking to you. You've been around like forever. Do you know that A&W is the oldest fast food chain?
I did not know that, but I know that evolutionary dead ends in fast food. McDonald's used to make a pizza back in the 90s, and that was a
I
dead end.
remember that. I remember that. I
Yeah,
do.
things happen.
And I liked it. Well, I'm not saying it was the greatest. I liked the idea that I could get a small pizza at McDonald's. You know,
Right.
it, it was a great idea. Anyway, so I'm sad that the pizza at McDonald's has disappeared. Speaking of evolutionary dead ends.
Right.
Anyway, I mean, I just
No, and it's a very good point. And of course, I'm sure if you broach this to obviously at this convention, the idea that open source is is a way to go forward. And you're speaking to of course other peers, other experts in the field, but like you said that there's an audience. Who was your intended audience? Was this again to kind of get people, get the next generation of security experts interested in the idea of open source, or was this speaking to people in the industry? Like, what was your purpose of giving the speech out there at this conference?
Well, I think I was waxing poetic in some ways. I think
That
there was something. I think there
right.
was something of. I mean, really, really, it's when you and I do the show here, and us, when we've been doing it for however long,
Mm-hmm.
we tend to concept. I mean, I bring up the concept of open source, but of course, we tend to concentrate. We talk about it at the All Linux show, and every once in a while, I like to step back and go, well, no, it's kind of the All Open Source show. And it's a little bit hard to remember that sometimes because the poster child, Linux is kind of the poster child of the open source world, and it is increasingly becoming invisible. And by becoming invisible, it's actually showing just how incredibly powerful and how how incredibly successful it has been. I mean, it is infinitely more successful than Mac OS, infinitely more successful than Windows, the Windows operating system. And most people will never even know that. Okay. And I say it's infinitely more successful because, first of all, there are more computers running Linux in the world than there will ever be running Windows, and there have ever been running Windows. All of the major supercomputers in the world are running Linux. The entire internet is built on Linux and open source software. All of Google runs on Linux. All of Amazon runs on Linux. All of, I mean, I can go on and on and on. The Internet of Things, all these little devices that are listening in on you every second and every day. Muhahaha. I can't have questions, I'll tell you. Because, of course,
Right.
there are some serious security issues associated with the Internet of Things. But this stuff is absolutely, and I'm not talking about IoT specifically here, but Linux as an operating system is everywhere. It's in your thermostat, it's in your television, it's in your Android smartphone. It's in freaking Windows 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we just did an article just the
Am I
other
allowed to say
uh,
freaking here?
well, I'm sorry, what?
Am I allowed to say
You are. That is a completely acceptable. We're not gonna highlight it though, but no. And just last week we did an article about how three different. I think it was like a SUSE, Red Hat, or I'm sorry, SUSE, Fedora, and Ubuntu are coming to the Windows Store. Like you can make you can make a bootable drive from the Windows 10 store directly from Microsoft. Like it's definitely getting out there in a more noticeable way, but as you pointed out, in less noticeable ways as well.
one of the things that's I was I actually read this online as well, but I was chatting with a friend about a week ago
Hmm?
about the fact that you can download these different distributions on Windows 10, from the Windows Store, from the actual Windows Store. One of the arguments, which I thought was fascinating, was that Microsoft wants to keep the developers on board. I mean, developers are vitally important to the health of any tech companies. I mean, you got to have people, that continue building your stuff. Well, developers, okay, those geeky developer types prefer to work with Linux than Windows. Even if they're developing for Windows,
Mm-hmm.
they will use Linux, work on their code and do all this sort of stuff. So you've got developers that work on that platform that nevertheless for their own desktops are running something entirely different. So I think it's so the logic that as it was explained to me, and again, I don't know if that's, I mean, I'm not privy to the people inside Microsoft who made this as a decision, but if I believe his logic, the idea was that Microsoft would much rather that these people develop, even if it meant that the Windows and the Linux desktops are one and the same, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Much rather have them in that environment than have them continually logged in and then occasionally going over to the Windows desktop, to run their code as they need it. So
Right. Yeah, and and that was the idea that you could run it in a virtual machine directly from Windows 10. So, hey, it looks like they're developing within Windows 10, but they're developing using Linux. So, no, and again, it's just an idea that Linux and open source, and the idea that that you can spread this kind of technology, very important. But one thing I wanted to get back to, and this was actually according to again merit.edu. And your presentation abstract, I think we should kind of break this down. And again, the show's going to kind of focus on the speech you just gave. And, you have here how open source destroyed the past, ominous, created the present, hooray, and will one day save the future, extra hooray. So why don't we, and, we have a little while before the break here. So why don't we get into why it destroyed the past, or how open source, as you put it, destroyed the past?
Well, you remember I said that open source is part ideology and part philosophy. It's not just technology. There's for a lot of people in the community, it's more than just technology. I mean, if it was just technology, it wouldn't capture people quite the way that it does.
Hmm?
Um, and the idea that things are free, okay, and I know I've covered this before, but I'll cover again. Free is in speech, free is in beer. Free is in beer. You go to a party, somebody hands you a beer, that's a free beer. Okay. Uh, you free is in speech is something entirely different. Okay? Free is in speech is the right to express yourself, to be. And in the context of that kind of freedom, okay, um, this is where you get into what you can do with the programs, which is modify the source code, share the source code, all that sort of thing. But part of what all this has done, it has developed a sharing culture, a sharing economy. And I mean, I know you've heard that term. It's been bantered around, the
Yeah.
sharing economy. But there's a sharing economy and a free economy, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that it is so frightfully easy to share stuff nowadays. Kevin Kelly, who is the founding editor, I think he's the founding editor for Wired magazine. I was listening to him a while back, and he was talking about the idea that the internet is a giant copying machine. You know, if you think about it, it's really kind of interesting. I like to think of it as as the transporter on Star Trek, which, by the way, is a scary, scary machine.
Oh yeah, no. The transporter is essentially a machine that rips you apart atom by atom and reconstructs a copy of you, not even you. It kills you, makes a copy of you, and you go.
Exactly.
It, I know it's a lot of fun, but no. But the idea of a giant copy machine, that's something else.
Yeah, the internet is a giant copying machine. So the internet doesn't actually, like when you send an email out to someone, it's not like you are creating this document and then the document itself is transported across the internet to the other side. Okay. It's not what happens.
Right.
Okay. What happens is these are the constituent bits that define the message that I'm trying to send. Okay. And then on the other side, it's like, all right, I will reassemble these bits into the same thing that you've got on the other side. So it's not like, so if you were to send an image, a cat picture to somebody, okay, it's not like you're sending out, you know, a cat picture. It's not like a cat picture leaves your computer, travels across the internet, and disappears from your computer. I don't know if you've known, but it's still there.
Right.
It's because it's not sending that. What it's doing is it's creating a copy of, it's all the details associated with that cat picture, and it's recreating that cat picture on somebody else's computer on the other side of the world, or
And
wherever.
yeah, and that was such that is kind of the idea behind applications such as Snapchat and other applications that essentially you send a picture and it erases itself as it moves through the network, and people were shocked. People were
But it doesn't erase itself.
exactly people were shocked, surprised, appalled that that hey, there are records of what you sent in other places besides your two phones.
And there is such a thing about messages that self-destruct after a while, so to speak. In other words, 24 hours later that message is no longer available. Okay, that's true, but it doesn't change the fact that what you create on this end, which gets, if you'll pardon the expression, received on the other end, there are now two copies, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, So the internet is a giant copy machine. So and it copies music just as easily as it copies Excel files or doc files or cat pictures or whatever. Okay, it doesn't care as far as the internet is concerned. As far as anything on the internet is concerned, one bit is exactly the same as another bit. Okay, it's just like, how do you want me to assemble all these different ones and zeros? And that's all it is. So the internet is this giant, massive international copy machine. That's what it does. Okay.
Right.
So the idea that you're selling copies of something is almost laughable if you stop to think about it for even a moment. Okay. That's not what's happening. What's happening is you just keep recreating things as many times. So there's no cost effectively other than, the bandwidth or the electricity necessary to maintain the equipment. There's no cost to speak of in creating another copy of something. This particular package, which sells for $1,200, doesn't cost any more in reality than the song that cost 99 cents off iTunes.
Right.
Okay? No difference whatsoever. So what has been happening in this culture of free, over the course of the last couple of 3 decades, is that people have come to get used to the idea that they can get practically anything for free. Now, there's a mystery happening here somewhere, okay? So people can get free movies, they can get free music, they can get free pretty much anything that they like. If it's a digital copy of something, okay, you either make it available for them at a reasonable price, like Netflix does,
Mm-hmm.
okay, or people just, circumvent the system and get whatever they want free. So the whole culture of of the open source, and I'm not saying that people in open source are pirates. I'm not saying that at all. But the idea that information, you've heard the expression, information wants to be free.
Right.
Well, putting all that aside, all this stuff not only feels free, but in a very, real conceptual way, it kind of is free. And quite often people will take advantage of it if there's no other way to get the stuff. If you can make it easy for people to get the stuff, I mean, Apple figured this out with iTunes, which is how Napster really came to an end. Okay. It wasn't that the forces of the law managed to shut down Napster. They couldn't do that if they tried. Okay. I'm not talking Napster specifically. I'm talking about sharing.
Right.
Sharing if their lives depended on it. However, people at Apple were reasonably bright. Steve Jobs and company were quite smart, and it was like, you know what? If I make it ridiculously easy for people, and I just say, it's 99 cents for a song, people will come, people will pay for it, and people have been years. Okay.
And I definitely do appreciate the fact that you brought up Netflix and piracy, because that is probably one of the best arguments, kind of for that, is that when Netflix comes to a country, like not even like, an area, but a country, and whatever is on Netflix's catalog, and people go and swarm onto Netflix because it's like $8, $10 a month, whatever it is now. And there is a direct correlation between what's available on Netflix and the piracy rate of those episodes. So it's not that people can get it for free, so they only want it for free. No, we don't see that. It's what is convenient, what is easy, and what is affordable.
But I'm going to upend that for you completely now.
Do it. I dare you. Do it.
Okay. Netflix is built on open source software as well. All their servers, everything that's in the background and so forth that sends the movies to you, is Linux and open source software. It's entirely built on that stuff. It's built on the backbone of the internet, on all these servers, DNS servers, the open source protocols that transmit all this information. And you know what? So all of a sudden it's like, well, people are paying for their movies. They're not pirating it because they have access to Netflix. Well, you know what Netflix has done? Netflix is doing really, really great, but Netflix has put a huge dent in other companies in the process. Okay. So they've hurt a lot of other companies, with this legitimate business model, because advertisers now have to try to find another place to go. Advertising is not worth as much money as it once was. So people don't make as much money off that stuff. So there are all these business models that
And Marcel, I'm going to have to stop you right there because music means you have to take a break. I know you can't hear it, but for everyone else out there, Marcel Gagne, Cooking with Linux, free thinker at large, and of course we'll be right back with more Linux talk right after this. So everyone, stay tuned. Computer America.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. But before we get back to Marcel Gagne, that's right, and before we get back to our conversation about, how open source and, we meandered on to, of course, Netflix and the idea that free and open can disrupt traditional business models. But hey, we're going to get right back to that. But before we do, we have a message from one of our sponsors. That's right. And this is for ZipRecruiter. So, of course, are you hiring? And do you know where to post your job to find the best candidates? Not the easiest thing to do. Trust us, we know this. Trying to find the best person for the job, it's a real headache because, a lot of people come from a lot of different backgrounds, and being able to weed through everything is quite the chore. So, well, now enter ZipRecruiter, where with ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to 100 plus job sites with a simple click. Then, of course, their powerful technology efficiently matches the right people to the job, better than anyone else. Not too bad. And of course, that's why ZipRecruiter is different, where unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you, it finds them. Takes all the guesswork out of it. And in fact, over 80% of the jobs posted on JobRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours. So, no juggling emails or calls to your office. Simply screen candidate, simply screen the candidate, rate them, manage all of them in one place with the ZipRecruiter dashboard, again, available through their website. So, find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes and to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And, of course, right now, our listeners here at Computer America can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That's right. Get that position hired. Where, and again, for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/free trial. That's right. ZipRecruiter.com/free trial. So, and one last time, just to drive it home, /free trial. ZipRecruiter/free trial. So, yeah, give it a try. Maybe just what you're looking for. And yeah, once again, ZipRecruiter. So, now we are, of course, heading back into our all Linux show. This is everything Linux, although this time we are, of course, getting a little high-minded here. But hey, perfectly fine, because as Marcel had said before, we tend to get, sometimes we talk about distributions, programs, software that is built on the foundations of the idea of open source. But, we never really talk about some of the ideals of what open source really means. And Marcel, as we were just talking about before the break, this idea that people can get anything for free and they kind of expect it at this point, but now you are kind of flipping that on end, because obviously with this kind of evolution, you disrupt business models, you disrupt distribution channels, and enter, pain points that maybe for pirates and maybe for a lot of the end consumer, the pain point is gone. Subscribe to Netflix. You get a bunch of entertainment for $8 a month. No pain there, no hassle. But you're saying that other companies, though, are, kind of feeling the pain themselves.
Oh, of course, because you're not you it's not a zero-sum game for anybody here. One company is suddenly doing really, really well, but you've got a whole other industry that is not doing as well all of a sudden. So it is starting to come down to who can take advantage of these disruptive technologies in such a way that they can build a market around it. But even when you take all that into consideration, it's a hell of a difference between somebody going into a theater. I mean, think about this for a second. Somebody goes into a theater, they spend $20, they buy $10 worth of popcorn and whatever other things. They spend the gas to go out there. Now they're spending $7.99 a month for essentially unlimited, movies.
Right.
No matter how you roll those dollars, there are other people that are being affected by having created this price point that makes people happy enough to just sit at home and spend the $7.99. And the same is true for services like Google Play Music. I mean, I'm a huge fan of these subscription services. I do use Google Play Music. Again, $7.99 a month, or what? Because I signed up like in the very, very early days. So I've got my grandfathered price on this stuff, and I don't buy CDs anymore. I spend probably, oh goodness, I'd be surprised if I spent as much money on music that I used to spend at one time.
Marcel, the kids are no longer buying CDs. They are buying records. Where have you been?
No, they're not.
Well, some of them are. Some of them are.
There's a very small market, and people say, oh, that market is growing. It's not really growing. I mean, it's growing from nothing. Okay,
Well,
it's growing.
and I think this actually ties into our point pretty well. Is that this is we sit up and take notice when it goes the other way. When this is the first time that with digital distribution, the idea that you can have a song, reproduce it millions of times, it doesn't matter. One song becomes millions of songs, and millions of people can listen to one song. The first time that physical media, and in this case it was records, they make a comeback, and everyone sits up and goes, whoa, wait, that's never happened before, because digital distribution has changed so much in the music industry for physical media to make a comeback in any minute way. And again, it is minute. In any minute
Yeah,
way,
it's
it's
it's going
interesting.
to stay minute. It's going to stay minute. I mean, it's like it's a cool thing. It's like, oh my God, that you can get like this little piece of vinyl and you can spin it on a turntable and it makes noises. That is so cool, man.
It's trendy. It's trendy.
It is. And it's all, and the problem with trendy is that it doesn't last. Okay. So it's not going to last that long. I don't know about you, but I don't expect film cameras to make a comeback anytime soon.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah,
As
no.
cool as that but it's not happening. It's like, really, you want to take pictures and then wait 7 days for it to, for the film to go away somewhere while you try to find out whether or not the pictures actually, to find out whether the pictures actually worked, whether it actually looks like what you wanted it to look like. No, this stuff is not coming back, even if in some limited scope their appearance. I mean, there are, like I said, there are complete industries that are dying, that are being upended. But it's not just industries. The the business models that we've built, which are built on the concept of you build a product, there are only so many of them out there, and therefore we're allowed to charge a price like this. Well, there's an unlimited number of anything that's digital. And in fact, manufacturing, okay, cheap 3D printers are making it so that you can create things. Those little spinners, the little fidget spinners that kids are playing with.
Those. And speaking of trends, my God, fidget spinners. But yes, I know them.
Okay, well, go to thingiverse.com. Okay, there's a website called thingiverse.com. Like thing,
I,
Thingiverse.
I'll I'll do you one better. I typed in Thingiverse into, and by the way, if you're watching the video portion, we'll have it up there. But I typed in Thingiverse, and the autocomplete for Google is Thingiverse fidget. I kid you not. So yeah, I see where you're going with this.
Okay, so this is a website that distributes free and open source plans to create physical objects. Okay, so it's not even a question of, oh, well, it's just bits and bytes that we're talking about here. No, if you've got a cheap 3D printer at home on the other end, you can create some of these things. I was thinking, I brought this up today, and I only thought about this. Well, I didn't think about it today, but I've been sort of mulling this in my brain. You remember last year, Mattel announced that they were going to re-release the Thing Maker. Now you, Mister, are far too young to remember what the Thing Maker is.
Unfortunately, yes.
There was this goop that you put on these little molds, okay, and it was goop, and then you would stick it inside something that was kind of like a easy bake oven because it tended to be aimed at boys, and then you would get like bugs and lizards and all sorts of wiggly goopy things that would come out on the other end, little rubberized toys. So what they did was they said, we're going to reintroduce the Thing Maker, except this time it's going to be a 3D printer. Think, I'm speculating wildly. We'll see if it makes it out for Christmas this year because they said it'll come out next year. But I think
Right.
somebody on the other end said, how can we lock this down a little bit? Because we're a toy maker. Okay, a lot of what we make are these little plastic toy things, like collectibles and things like. I mean, there's also, we're talking Mattel, right?
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, you're going to give kids the means to produce whatever toy they want, up to a certain degree. Obviously, if they're
Right.
electronic toys, it's a little bit more difficult. But all these plastic figurines, that you might have sold them in the past, now they're able to make them at home using their 3D printer.
Right, and not even that, but here in the States, again, you are a visitor here, so I do not expect this for you to know this. But in public libraries across this country, great resource, they are actually investing in 3D printers. Like local libraries in a lot of cities all over this country have 3D printers, so people don't even need to wait to buy them. They have access to them.
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah.
They're doing that at home as well. Like, the Kitchener Public Library, Waterloo Public Library
Hmm.
have 3D printers that you
Right.
can use.
Right.
Yep. And I can see that as listening to Bill Nye, the science guy, talking on an episode of Star Talk a little while ago, and he was. I love how Bill Nye refers to the internet as the electrical internet. I love Bill. Anyway, Bill. Anyway, so Bill was talking about the idea that he can imagine a neighborhood shop, a place that you go into that has a whole pile of 3D printers, like the high speed 3D printers. He has another term. He doesn't like the term 3D printers and calls it additive
Right.
additive manufacturing.
Additive. Right.
Additive manufacturing. Anyway, so he said, I can imagine instead of going into a store and buying, this particular object, whatever it is, you go into your local community, um, shop that has all these 3D printers, in place, and you've got your plans which have been downloaded, and you just, you have whatever it is that you want printed, or manufactured for you there on the spot. It sounds an awful lot like the Star Trek. I've lost the word. It has disappeared from my brain all of a sudden. I hate that.
The replicator.
But the replicator. Thank you. Phew.
Right.
Anyway, the replicator. Yeah, the replicator. It's like you can make food, or you can make a cup, or you can make whatever. We're coming to that even for physical objects. It's not a matter of I need to go and purchase this finished product that is sitting in a shiny plastic package that's been put on display somewhere or whatever. No, it's like I want this object, and I will go into a place and they will make it for me as I need it, like right now.
But the
Okay,
question is that we are of course tying this into open source, and the idea that is this where you get into saving the future, or is this kind of making the present?
oh, that's the present. That I mean, that is still the destruction. Okay, the present that we live in. I'm taking away too long. The present that we live in is a present now that is, there's an increase in artificial intelligence. Robots are going to be taking people's jobs in a big way. There's a lot of estimates out there of all sorts of nightmare numbers, but even the most optimistic numbers that I see out there suggest that something like 30% of all the jobs will disappear within 15 to 20 years. 30%.
Yeah.
Imagine 30% unemployment. Okay.
I,
This is amazing. Okay. And robots, artificial intelligence, all these things are the children that we created.
but like here
All
is and like here's something that Craig and I, we had a friction point for the longest time about this, was that he was, he kind of looked towards the past and said, well, you can kind of say automation and the assembly line, blah blah blah, and new jobs came from new processes. But at the same time, like, this was my grounding point, was that when you lose 30% of your workforce, or you lose 30% of your jobs and the workforce is still there, I don't think those kinds of, we're not going to have jobs to replace those jobs. It's going to get hairy in 15 to 20 years.
There's a guy named Yuval Harari who is the author of *Sapiens*. In fact, I'm going to book recommendation for the people that are out there listening,
Sure.
and and purchase yourself or borrow from your local library or whatever. Libraries are still cool, by the way, people. You can check out libraries. Yuval Harari's *Sapiens*, Sapiens. Okay, it is a fascinating book, and he has a new one, which I have at the moment, called Homo Deus, which is kind of the follow-up to that. Anyway, that what's different this time, people sit there and they say, oh, industrial revolution, it created more jobs than it took away. That's true. But this is a time like no other. Okay, this is a time of intelligent machines that can, if you'll pardon the expression, think. I'm going to use that term, very loosely in this case. I'm not saying that they think, independently as self-aware creatures, but that can think, that can manipulate, that can do things, like they can drive cars. Okay, they can build things, they can deliver things. We're like, there are pizza delivery robots, for goodness sakes, at the moment. All these things will replace us in a way that we've never seen before, that we've never thought about before. Okay, so the idea that all of a sudden you're going to find jobs for tens of millions of people doing what? Okay, there's the big question. Are robots and AIs able to do pretty much any of these jobs, especially
And and
especially some of the jobs that are repetitive jobs, that are easy to automate. A lot of this stuff is easy to automate, and there's no other thing that we can think of that people are going to do. Yuval Harari says humans can do two things really, really well. We can think, okay,
right,
thinking is, okay, and then the other thing is we can manipulate things. We can make things with our hands. Well, guess what?
they can do both.
Okay,
Yeah.
both,
Well,
and they can do better than us.
and Marcel, I'm going to say one thing. I'll let you shoot me down, or say, "Wow, Ben, you're so brilliant." One or the other, and then we'll move on. And then we'll move on to the future and why it's so good, because we have like 10 minutes left, and I don't want to end on you're all going to lose your jobs and we're all going to die poor and it's going to be sad. But no, but one thing I do want to mention is that it's not just like the repetitive jobs, like you were kind of saying. And I'm sorry if you were going to get to this point eventually, but there was an article out about a Japanese CEO, and I forget which company it was, like Hyundai or Sony or one of these. That it's not just repetitive. It's not just pizza delivery drivers that are at risk of losing their jobs, but with artificial intelligence and the way that they can right now at this point diagnose cancer, diagnose illnesses, check you for check your eyes for glaucoma and things like that. I mean, doctors' jobs are in jeopardy. We have CEO jobs are in jeopardy. Right now, we have articles being written for newspapers by artificial intelligence, where they go out, they scrap information, put it together, and yeah, like, all jobs are in danger.
That's right. And there's a hotel chain that I was reading about, Japan as well, which is run by robots.
Yeah.
The employees, if you'll pardon the expression, and I'm using that, and I'm doing air quotes here, employees are robots. There are restaurants where the serving staff. I mean, it is coming. It is happening, and it's happening in a big way. I mean, it doesn't feel like it at the moment, but I think it's because a lot of us are blind, if you'll pardon the expression, to the idea. Oh, of course, this will never happen. Oh, no, no, it's going to happen, and it's happening now.
Right.
The experience I've heard, it's like, well, this has happened before. No, no, this time it really is different. It really is different, and it's important that we start thinking about that. And part of the saving the future is, the open source economy, so to speak, the idea that we share things, okay, that we think of a pool into which we are all invested in some way, shape, or form, is something that I have a lot of trouble sort of adapting to. And and it is something that we're going to have to get used to. Is what do we do when everything is free? Okay, and again, I'm going to put air quotes around the word everything, but you can't just suddenly ask, tens of millions of people in the United States to. It's like, well, I'm sorry, now you're going to have to starve to death. You know what? The country is going to be a serious mess those people's mouths because desperate people do desperate things. Okay. So you have to start thinking about how do you take care of people in a world where you're never going to be able to find work for those people again. And you have to start thinking about things like, universal basic income. Bill Gates has famously suggested that we tax the robots.
Right.
Companies are making money by not having employees. Okay. Hey, treat the robots like employees and they pay taxes, get funneled back into a government, which then supplies universal basic income to the people. Okay? These are all like really fascinating ideas that we need as a society to get off our duffs and think about right now, because this is not something. One of the guys in the one of Trump's guys a little while ago said, no, robots and AI aren't on our radar maybe 50 or 100 years from now. You know what? It's not happening 50 or 100 years from now. It's happening in the next 10, 15 years. It's happening right now, today.
I mean, to be fair,
So,
this has to do with companies such as Google, such as IBM, who are making advancements into
Amazon, yes.
right that are making advancements into artificial intelligence. That's even themselves. They said that we weren't expecting the first person to lose to an artificial intelligence go playing machine for another 10 years, and then they did. I mean, it's happening faster than anyone expected.
Well, right now there are artificial intelligences that are developing methods of communication that only they understand. So you've got robots developing languages, developing types of mathematics that even understand. Okay, like so speaking in mathematical languages that no human is able to comprehend. It's like really weird stuff. And ask me, well, when do you think the first intelligence will self-aware? It doesn't matter.
Hmm.
The idea of the Terminator, when we're going to get rid of the humans and stuff like that, it almost doesn't matter. Okay, because when the intelligences are able to basically take over and do everything, or do a large part of what we do, it doesn't matter whether they're self-aware or not. I mean, it's an interesting question. It's
The
an interesting
right.
actual question.
it, 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 it's definitely very interesting. I did hear. I was listening to talk radio in the car. I think everyone should listen to talk radio, especially Computer America. But I was listening to talk radio in the car, and someone brought up the idea that the idea of universal basic income. They didn't like that because conservatism being what it is. That's not what you do. But yeah, yeah, I know, but his idea, which I didn't like in the car, and I still don't like it, and I think I know why, is that he saw the next source of income for people who don't have jobs is for Facebook, is for Twitter, is for essentially for Amazon, for anyone who collects information about you, or Google, they pay you. They pay you for the information that you give them, because right now we give our information for free to Facebook, to Google, to whoever, for them to package and sell. And his idea was that we turn around and, get paid for the information we give Google, Facebooks of the world. And I didn't like that.
Well,
but yeah.
That's Bill Gates taxing the robots.
Right.
Trying
Right.
to collect from you for, you're talking the question. So I guess I'm on your side. If you didn't think that made a heck of a lot of sense, I agree. It doesn't make an awful lot of sense. I don't think that that's where it's going to come from. Go back with me like about 200 years here. I was listening to a historian on the radio a couple months ago, talk radio, by the way, talking about the idea that, well, what are people going to do with their time? Well, one of the interesting questions there, I mean, we could play games, we could hang out with them, we can chat, we can socialize. Well, how do we make money? Well, who cares how we make money? Because we got to get away from that model. Capitalism is actually a relatively recent invention in this world. Okay, it actually is a relatively recent invention, and we spent most of human civilization without the capitalistic, which is I'm going to produce product and I'm going to make more money this year than I made the year before by putting out yet more products. The consumer society is not what humanity has been since the beginning of time. So there was a time when you worked to plant the crops hard for a short period of time, and then you sat on your ass for most of the time. Okay, am I allowed to say ass?
Probably not.
You sat ass for most of the time, and you visited people, and yes, you tended to do a few chores here and there and so forth, but that's not the same thing as going to work for 8 hours a day. That is a creation of industrialization. You wanted a force that was dependable, that showed up at regular intervals, that to man the machines and take care of things like that. This is not something that's existed for most of human civilization. This is only something that's existed as long as industrialization has existed. So a couple of 100 years at most. So the industrial age, the one where we need people in factories to take care of machines, to manually do things.
Right.
Okay. It is the end. We are at the end of this. I'm not saying it's at the end, this month. Okay. But in the next few years, before your children, then, reach adulthood,
Right.
it will largely have come.
And that's why whenever I hear people say especially people older 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, and they go, man, I did not live long enough to see all the amazing advancements of technology. I'm like, you kind of did, and now the next 30 and 40 years is going to be super chaotic, and I don't know if you wanted to be around here to see this anyways. It's
it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be, but it probably will be. Let's be honest here. So, with all this aside, this was a very interesting conversation, Marcel. I love this immensely. But we have about a minute left. Tell us about what you're doing. Obviously, you're about to hit the road again. And if people want to find more about you, where would they go?
Well, if they want to find out more about how I wax poetically on whatever topics, they can, first of all, if they're looking for things Linux and open source related, cookingwithlinux.com. They can find me on Twitter. I am WFTL on Twitter, WFTL, writer and free thinker at large. And if you want to see some of my Cooking with Linux videos or my gaming videos, if you're into that sort of thing, you can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/freethinker at large, all one word. And other than that, there's also my website, marcelgagne.com. And I'm just trying to keep busy out there, shaking things up for the world, and hopefully creating a better future.
and I'm sure to half our audience out there espousing the end of capitalism as we know it. So blasphemer. So we can add that to your resume.
Not such a bad thing if you think about it.
Right, absolutely. So yeah, and for everyone out there, that is just about it. We're going to say thank you one more time, Marcel. See you next month, of course. And everyone out there, Marcel Gagne, Cooking with Linux. Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, and for everyone else out there, thank you for joining us here on Computer America. I hope you enjoyed that. I know I definitely did. And if you want to hear this, more, or any other show, we just had a Blue Microphone on the program, by the way, last Monday. Definitely check them out. It's always a lot of fun to have them on. But, yeah, computeramerica.com. Check it out. And for anything else, of course, check out our website. Once again, computeramerica.com. So, everyone, have a great day. Bye, everyone.
10 seconds.